Joel, great to see you again. I have in front of me not one, but three excellent articles you've written on the subject. My favorite, I think, is from the far left ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, that's actually run by a former high Obama official. Let me read the headline of it, and then I'll let you expand. The headline is ADL, extremist killings down 39% under President Donald Trump. Take it away, Joel. What's going on out there?
So the first thing to know is that the number of extremist killings in the United States is a very small number. So you can have fluctuations in that number that look like very significant percentages, but overall may be statistically insignificant. We're talking about a marginal phenomenon, whether the killings are on the left or the right. They're certainly sensational in some cases, like the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting in 2016, which was carried out, you could call him a left-wing extremist, carried out by a left-wing extremist as part of an Islamist terror attack. But the number overall, nevertheless, is still very small. So Ilhan Omar is saying that Donald Trump is to blame, essentially, for the rise of white nationalism and extremism and so forth. I'd argue the opposite. If we're talking about white nationalism, it's probably more marginal than ever, because the backlash against white nationalism has been so severe that people don't want to be associated with anything 5 football fields away from it. They run away from anything that's even somewhere close to what it might be. And partly it's because of the media's hyping of the small number of white supremacists, white nationalists. They're very good at getting attention for themselves. The media inflate them also because they like tarnishing Republicans with some sort of association, even though white nationalists are not Republicans. Sometimes they're Democrats, they're opportunists because they'll do whatever it takes to make themselves more prominent than they deserve to be. But anyway, Ilhan Omar was citing statistics saying that every extremist murder in the United States, or every extremist-related killing in the United States in 2018 was caused by a right-wing extremist. Now, it's a funny kind of statistic. The actual number of quote-unquote extremist-related killings was 50. This comes from a study by the Anti-Defamation League. You'll note Ilhan Omar did not cite them directly because the Anti-Defamation League has been critical of her for her anti-Semitic remarks. So she's not going to link to them directly. The other reason she won't link to them directly is that if you look at the numbers, they don't quite work out the way she says they do. So the number of extremist-related killings was 50, but that doesn't mean that people in those 50 were killed for extremist reasons. It turns out people who are extremists politically also have a lot of other problems. They have behavior problems, they may have drug and alcohol problems. So those killings, the 50 killings, may have nothing to do with extremism whatsoever. And in fact, if you look at the ADL's study, they find that the proportion of killings within those 50 that were committed for ideological reasons actually went down from the year before. So the number of ideological killings is decreasing, is falling, not rising. So the actual numbers behind that claim that she cited do not favor her argument. In fact, they prove the opposite. Moreover, if you look more closely at the ADL report, you find that there were 72 extremist-related killings in 2016 and 70 in 2015, or the other way around, basically a total of 142. That's in the last 2 years of Barack Obama. In the first 2 years of Donald Trump, there were 50 extremist-related killings in 2018 and 38 in 2017. So that's only 88. And that is a sharp decline from where they were under Obama. They're a decline of 39%. So actually, as long as we're using the numbers that the left is now throwing out there, let's look at what the numbers say. The numbers say Donald Trump has been more successful at fighting extremism than Barack Obama. Or to put it another way, white nationalism, since that's what they're calling this, white nationalism is decreasing, not increasing. Now, that's playing with the numbers a little bit because some of the extremist killings under Obama weren't white nationalist killings. They were on the other side. They were Islamist killings, sometimes left-wing killings, explicitly so in the case of Black Lives Matter activists who shot police and that sort of thing. But basically, we're arguing over marginalia. I mean, these are very small numbers. They're not necessarily, I haven't done the statistical analysis of them, I highly doubt they're significant at all, even when they show a decline that's favorable to Trump. I think this is all a bunch of nonsense. They're trying to blame Trump for New Zealand, and they're trying to insulate radical Islam from criticism. There is no contradiction between criticizing radical Islam and empathizing with innocent Muslims who were killed simply because they showed up to pray. That, in fact, is the distinction between radical Islam and ordinary Islam. And you have to insist on that distinction, because if you don't, you allow radical Muslims to represent the whole, which was the whole thrust of Obama's foreign policy, right? That's why he never wanted to call radical Islam, because he didn't want to give them any prominence. He didn't want people to conflate Islam with terrorism. But you're doing that if you don't allow people to condemn radical Islam and also defend innocent Muslims. So anyway, this is all part of Ilhan Omar's attempt to redirect criticism back onto the president. The media are going along with it. They see an opportunity to hurt the president by blaming him for what happened in New Zealand. The killer in New Zealand happened to cite the president in his manifesto. The media are generally only reporting one side of that. They're citing that he praised Donald Trump as a symbol of identity, but they are ignoring the fact that the killer, the terrorist, also said Donald Trump did not behave as he would have wanted him to have behaved in office. He said he didn't like Donald Trump's policies. So he likes him as a symbol, but he doesn't like him as the president. Well, what we're talking about is the president of the United States. So I don't know if we should actually give any credence at all to this terrorist and what he thought. But the media are definitely trying to establish a connection for all the usual obvious reasons.
That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. Every day I do a video monologue, and then I interview an interesting guest. And then I end by reading my hate mail, but you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at therebel.media/shows.